We were in a valley in the Rocky Mountains. It would be Montana at some point. Lily nibbled on some clover a bit away from the fire. She eyed a massive draft horse-sized wolf uneasily. It lay by the fire, soaking in the heat. "Shush you, it's been 100 years. Get used to him," I said to Lily. I poked the fire with a stick. A cold wind started blowing. It would start snowing soon. I picked up the pot of coffee with a cloth and poured it into a small metal cup. As I sipped, I took off my boots and shook them. I pulled off my duster and balled it up, placing it under my head. I lay back. The headache grew stronger. I closed my eyes. I felt a nudge under my hand. The wolf bumped me with its nose. It snuffled at me. I scratched its head. He whined. "What?" He growled. The base shook the embers of the fire. I heard the sound of a shotgun blast. Yeah. The wolf grinned. My hand sunk into the head of the wolf. "I'm just a poor wayfaring stranger, traveling through this world below." Hi, this is Ivy Tara Blair, and welcome to Ivy Reads, a series in which I read to you some of my favorite scenes or short chapters of books that I have loved throughout my life, books that have really meant something deep to me. Or as the series goes on, I may get suggestions from some of the listeners, books that have meant something really deep to them, books that have really grabbed you deep in your soul for some reason. Those are the things that I want to be reading in this little series. But I'm not reading them as a professional audiobook narrator. I am reading them as I want to sit by a fireplace with a glass of wine in each of our hands and share with you a book I have loved with full enthusiasm of my own voice invested in the book to try and get you as excited about the book as I am. That's what I'm trying to do with this series. If you want to hear my professional work, I suggest you go to my audiobook sample page and listen to especially the very first file I have there. This series, however, is not a representation of how I sound professionally because a professional audiobook narrator does not put their own voice into the book and does not read fast and laugh and occasionally add editorial asides. This is a selection from Dakota S.R. Aspen's You Carry Your Wars With You, soon to be released if he and I can get the edit done. He may be my son, but I am a vicious editor. However, do not be deceived by any motherly pride. This is a hell of a first outing. This is a magical realism book set in Seattle. Protagonist characters being various and sundry magical beings, but primarily Theodore, who is a very old werewolf, older than 250 years. The world building he has done is really detailed and very refined. His character work is distinct and enjoyable and extremely diverse. The dialogue is just to die for. As a narrator, I absolutely love it. It's funny, it's heartbreaking, it's a wild romp, and at the same time, it's the story of a man who cannot be anything other than what he is, and yet what he is a monster, and he is dedicated to killing monsters. And so he's doing the best he can with what he has. So there's a big wide streak of tragedy. For those of you who really need adventure and action, yeah, there's plenty of that. In fact, there's some parts that are like really, really intense. I mean, he is a killing machine and he does occasionally go out and wipe things out, which is where this scene begins, or takes up, I should say. I'm skipping the wiping out part because that's an awfully hard thing to throw people into the deep end of and go, yay, you're going to love this book, when what he's actually been doing is going full Vietnam, as another character says, on, do you say a hive of cultists, a lair of cultists? At any rate, he's been doing a one-man elimination job on this cult because there was A, no one else there to do it with him, and B, he was really the only one who could wade in and wipe all these people out and not end up with a bunch of cops dead, which comes up as a significant part of the dialogue to follow, which is what I'm going to read. We join the scene with Theodore's friends, Moselle, who is a young vampire and devoted to him, and Musashi. They come in and they're there to save the day. They're there to save Theodore. They're there to help him however he needs help, and this is the conversation that ensues. "Theodore!" shouted Moselle. Anton's head snapped up in the direction of the doorway. Moselle and Musashi sprinted forward. Anton snarled and spoke a single word. In a blast of energy, Anton vanished. I collapsed. I had suffered a fair bit of damage from the fire. 2nd-degree burns on my shoulder, 1st-degree burns on the back of my head. "Holy shit, Theodore, are you all right?" said Moselle as I stood up. "Yep." "Why did you try to do this alone?" said Musashi. "It almost worked. You scared him off." "Why are you here?" I took off the gloves and put them in my duster. Moselle flung up her hands. "Hendricks phoned us. Said he'd been called away from Seattle by the local police here. They needed help with something strange. We assumed it was you and came as soon as possible." "Good." I picked up my gun. "Hendricks is here. We'll need him. Take me to him." Sure." She looked me up and down. "Pretty sure any cop we see is going to arrest you, though." She paused. "Is that a claymore?" "Yes. We need to send the police to the small building. Hostages." "Right." They led me out of the building. A mile of trudging later, we walked out of the rainforest proper and into 27 police cars. 19 police officers pointed guns at me. "Drop the weapon!" "Wait!" shouted Hendricks. The Blues paused. He waved his arm. "Let him through." We walked through the police line. I withdrew a handkerchief and began wiping the gore and paint from my face. I failed. We came up to Hendricks. "Jesus, Theodore, what happened?" "Be careful going into the forest. Traps." "Yeah," he said, looking at the paint and gore-stained handkerchief. "Some of my men dodged a few." He spoke slowly. "There were wounded people at the bottom." "Yes." "Why?" "Anton's main compound was here." "And you didn't ask for any help?" "Yeah, what he said," said Moselle. "No." "Why?" "Best option." "The best option was for you to not start murdering people. Theodore, I'm going to have to arrest you. You can't just go around bombing places." I grunted and lit a cigarette. Hendricks pursed his lips and watched. "Saved plenty of your men. Almost got Anton. If the cavalry hadn't showed up, I'd be burying him right now." A Blue popped out of the crowd. "Found a bunch more. Looks like they got hit by a claymore." Hendricks waved the Blue away. He looked haggard. He shouldn't be in the field. He walked with a limp and had plenty of bandages on his arm. "Hostages," I said, "in the small building. Get them out." "Take his gun," said Hendricks. A Blue tentatively tugged the gun from my hand. I let him take it. I looked up. The moon that faintly burned my skin was lower in the sky now. The sun would rise soon. "You should get home," I said to Moselle. "Pretty sure there's a hotel I can stay at. I'll be fine." She gave me a small smile. "Good." "You going to let him take you?" asked Musashi. His hand was on his sword. "No." "I'm right here," said Hendricks. "Sorry, I can't let you arrest me. I have work to do. You could try to charge me for the deaths of these people. It wouldn't stick." "Theodore, I can't just explain away this many bodies. Dozens of people died here. I'm going to have to report it." "Feel free to report it. I'm saying the charges will never stick." "Why?" I threw my cigarette to the side. "Hendricks, you're not an idiot. Who do you think owns the government?" Hendricks narrowed his eyes. "Money." I leaned against his car and crossed my arms. "My world has the most wealthy and influential people in existence. The mayor is sponsored by a she, the chief of police is owned by a god's child, and Amazon is run by vampires. I'm too valuable and dangerous to be sent to jail. You will bring me in, you will stick me in a cell, and you will be fired. That may be the case, but I still need to try. Hendricks, why did I kill these people? Because you're a fucking lunatic. Yes, that is one reason. What would have happened if I'd called you instead? We'd have stormed the place. No, we'd have had another Waco. A Waco with 20 hostages where the only guy that matters has the ability to escape at any time. How exactly would he have escaped? Teleportation. Theodore, you still spouting that bullshit? He reached into his pocket, pulled out a handful of no-dos and downed them. He pulled his cuffs off his belt. You pierced the shroud. You can try to explain it away as much as you want. It's not going to work. Hands behind your back. I nodded. I put my hands behind my back. I sat in the car for 6 hours. They needed Hendricks around for quite a while. Apparently, I hadn't taken them all out. During that time, intermittent gunfire could be heard. I waited. As the sun stood high in the sky, Hendricks, along with a detective I didn't know, got into the car. Hendricks looked like he needed a week of sleep and a 15-shot sugar-tastrophe from Starbucks. He wordlessly began driving. Anybody dead? I asked. 2 dead, 5 wounded, 3 badly, said the other detective. How many did I miss? 3. They'd gone to Taco Bell. I nodded. I saw your work. You went full Vietnam on them. Her voice was cool. I've seen some bad things in my career, but that was one of the worst. How much do you know about the case? Not much. Hendricks has been, she paused, a bit tight-lipped. He's got his reasons. He didn't tell me why he is working with you. You look like you just came out of a World War I trench. She looked through the grate at me. I'm a specialist. Are you a veteran? Yep. Vietnam? That's a rude question to ask. Veteran of quite a few wars. And why does Hendricks need a deranged vet around? I'm not deranged. None of those people could have been over 28. You murdered a bunch of fucking kids. She tried to stare me down. I looked out the window at the trees and homeless people. I've done worse in my time. Jesus. She fell quiet. We drove in silence for half an hour. He was useful. He saved my life, Hendricks said at last. From what? Ghouls, I said. Hendricks shuddered. There was a pause. Is that some gang I haven't heard about? Yes, said Hendricks. How did you find this guy? She asked. I got a message from a retired detective. Told me if I ever really needed help with something strange, I should come to Theodore. This case is strange. How did a cult with this many people and guns go unnoticed for so long? It didn't, I said. What? Said Hendricks. My boss has known about them for a while. I'm sure plenty of other people knew. And you didn't do anything about it? Nope. Why? They were no worse than any of us. Who's your boss? Asked the other detective. Lord Lachlan. Who? She. A what? Stop asking questions, Harlow, said Hendricks. I snorted. Are you telling me that you people didn't care about this cult because plenty of other people are doing the same thing? Asked Harlow. Or worse. People like me try to deal with the really bad ones, but I'm not going to commit genocide. Vampires will turn humans into mindless slaves. Trolls will eat people. She will drive artists insane for fun. Fae will steal children to use for currency. And you're fucking fine with that, said Hendricks. Trolls? Said Harlow. No, not really, but it can't be helped. Like, fuck it can't, snarled Hendricks. Hendricks, imagine trying to stop every serial killer or human trafficker in the U.S. Just can't be done. We still try to. I stop as much as I can. If a troll decides it only wants to eat humans, or if a group of vampires start killing too many people, I stop them. How long does it take until a trail of bodies is linked to a serial killer? How many rapists get away because there wasn't enough hard evidence? It takes quantity or direct media attention before the police throw in their full weight behind a case. I do the same. As long as there are beings on this planet, they will hurt each other. The stupid ones or the repeat offenders will be caught. The smart ones will not. "What the fuck are you two talking about?" asked Harlow. "I'll explain it later," said Hendricks. Before she could respond, Harlow's phone rang. She took it out. She spoke for a bit. "Let him out," she said coldly. "What?" asked Hendricks. "Could you please let me out of my car?" I said. "What? Why?" asked Hendricks. "Boss man told us to." "Are you fucking kidding me?" "No." "Let me speak to him." "That's probably a bad idea." He sounded really angry. "Fuck, fuck, 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 fuck," said Hendricks, punching the steering wheel. He pulled off to the side of the road. He got out of the car and opened my door. I got out and handed him my handcuffs. He looked at them incredulously. Harlow came to stand behind him. "You still going to try to solve this case, or are you going to have a tantrum?" Hendricks punched me in the face. I rolled with the punch and staggered backward. Harlow got between us. I spat out a tooth. "Be angry at me all you want. Are you going to work with me to find him?" Hendricks' anger dissolved into crying. Harlow looked between us, confused. "What the fuck is any of this? I don't understand what's happening," he sobbed. "You just learned that the world is bigger and scarier than you thought. Any sane person would react this way. I'm not trying to guilt you into helping. I'm asking honestly. You could go home, hide from this, let your body heal." "What the fuck?" said Harlow. Hendricks leaned against his car, his head in his hands. "I don't fucking understand." "Hendricks, we have a little time. Anton's on the run for now, and I need to rest. I can try to explain some of this stuff to you." Hendricks cried for a couple more minutes. He sniffled and nodded. "Good. I know a place that serves really good coffee." "A place that doesn't mind you're covered in paint and blood?" asked Harlow. "It's owned by a friend." We got back into the car and started driving. Poor Hendricks. Poor Harlow. But Hendricks was in a battle with ghouls and really got the tar beaten out of him. He's got bitten and thrashed around, and I think his arm's broken, and he's really in no shape to be taking in all of this new information that he just found out about 2 days before. Harlow, on the other hand, you can have some sympathy for Harlow, but at least she's intact. The thing that I love the most about this book has got to be Theodore himself, which is good. Your main protagonist should be something that your readers really love about the book. The fun thing about Theodore, though, is he's done all of this 100 times. He's explained how the shroud conceals the magical world and how it was made. He's explained the hierarchy of how magical creatures work. He's helped people deal with this and fight the monsters and adjust hundreds of times. And he's just so unconcerned. He knows they'll get there eventually. He's not really worried about it, which makes him sound kind of heartless. But it's so fun to read that and try to imbue his voice with the compassion that really is at Theodore's core, or he wouldn't be out here doing this. And the not paternal waiting, because that makes it sound condescending, but rather the waiting that a teacher does while you're solving a problem. And they know you're going to get it. So they're just waiting. They're not going to help you or give you any hints. They're just giving you space to figure it out. Because figuring it out on your own is going to give your brain such a much better grasp of what's going on, right? That's exactly how Theodore deals with every human who he has to interface with in this crazy, crazy world. And then there's the entirely different side of Theodore where he talks to the magical creatures, in which he pretty much has to wade in and prove that he's the biggest badass in the room to the people who might not know who he is. Pretty much everyone knows who he is, at least when it comes to magical creatures older than about 100 years, because no one's fought in more wars. No one's mediated in more conflicts. No one's thrown down as many times as Theodore has, and he really has nothing to prove. So it's really funny. There are a couple of scenes where people enter the scene and have no idea who he is. And he just kind of waits. He doesn't have to do anything because all the other people surrounding them are backpedaling as fast as they can and trying to explain to this poor noob that you really don't want to tangle with this guy. He's got nothing to prove. He's not going to attack you, but hey, if you're an idiot, he'll defend himself. So everywhere Theodore goes, he's a slightly different Theodore, but he's always at his core this deadly patient, quiet, compassionate observer, detailed observer of everything that's going on around him in terms of the plot, the mystery, because this is a mystery, the characters individually, and the politics of the magical world as it exists all around them in a way that extends far beyond the scope of this particular book. Dakota has plotted out an entire series in which the world building encompasses all of world mythology and a tremendous amount of history. God, that kid's a history buff. I say kid. I'm his mother. Don't mind me. He's a 20-year-old man about to publish his first book, and this book just kicks ass. If you love magical realism, if you love snappy dialogue and witty repartee, and if you love character building that you can just sail through this book and read the adventure, or you can stop and really take in the character depth and the world-building depth and get a sense of how big this universe really is going to get. A book that can do both the rollicking adventure and the depth. Those are the books that are an absolute joy to read. I'll tell you what, man, editing this book for dozens of hours a week is not a hardship. That's how enjoyable this book is. I'm done now. I'm done with my promotion. This has been a selection from Dakota S.R. Aspen's You Carry Your Wars With You. I'm Ivy Tara Blair, wishing you all only the best.
To see my mother, she said she'd meet me when I come. So I'm just going over Jordan. I'm just going alone. I'm just going over Jordan. I'm just